Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be doing something I am so excited about. I spent forever last night setting this up because I am bad at coming up with ideas and things. You'll see what I mean in a second, but we're going to be doing tier ranking. I'm so excited. I think I've done this like one other time on my channel and it was so much fun. And so I really wanted to do some end of year content, but I'm also not willing to do a lot of end of year content yet because I still have a lot of books that I want to read, a lot of big new releases and stuff. So I just don't want to do my worst of list. I don't want to do my best of list yet. And my most disappointing because I can definitely add stuff onto there. So that stuff is going to be more towards the end of December, early January. Right now, I felt like I could do a little bit of end of the year content, like the DNFs. I can compile a DNF list because I have quite a few over the past year that I can talk about. I don't really care if I miss a couple DNFs here and there. That's not a big deal. So I will have a DNF video coming out relatively soon. And I also was like, okay, what other end of year content can I do that I'm really interested in? And I was like, we're gonna tier rank all of the books that I've read this year. I'm so excited. Tier ranking, I feel like, is more of a video for the YouTuber than it is for the actual audience because it's just fun. Like, it is legitimately just a lot of fun coming up with a template, coming up with all that stuff. It's just a really good time. Okay, so template is up right now and yeah, we gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about it because I was originally just gonna do like generic titles and just be like, oh, these were like my favorites of the favorite. These I liked a little bit less, were still really good. But I was like, let's do it fun. A lot of the tier rankings that I watch are actually horror YouTubers. They do a lot of horror rankings over on horror or not booktube, but horror tube. Is that what you would call it? Movie tube? I don't know, but I'm on the horror side of YouTube and they do a ton of rankings because they watch a lot of movies throughout the year. So they do this to kind of like get their thoughts out and it's just so much fun. And normally they do really, really creative tiers. And so I have been watching so many sitcoms lately, like so many sitcoms. So I decided to do my tiers with sitcom quotes. I know, I feel like it's been done plenty of times, but that's what I was feeling like doing, so that's what we're gonna do. And I have, I think, 5 tiers, and they are basically the same as number ratings. So like my 5s are gonna be 5s, my 4s are 4, whatever. But there are like slight differences. So like there are some 5s that are like favorites forever, like they're gonna be my favorites forever, but then there's like soft 5s that don't belong in that kind of category, so that's gonna be 2 separate categories. And then you've got 4s that are really good and like high 3s, and then you've got like kind of mediocre 3s. You have the 2s, which I really don't like, but they don't deserve to be at the bottom. So there's like a lot going on. You'll see what I mean when I actually read the quotes out. So I'm trying to remember if I remember all of the sitcoms because I didn't write the sitcoms down. But anyway, so starting off with the creme de la creme, I of course had to use a quote from 30 Rock. It is one of my favorite sitcoms, TV shows in general, like ever. It's so funny and stupid. So this is literally reserved for books that are going to be favorites probably forever. I don't think I'm gonna have many on here. I'm really curious if I'm gonna have any, but because I'm trying to remember the books that I have, but it's really hard to remember 120 something books. So first one is Listen Up 5s, a 10 is speaking. I love that quote. It's Jenna from 30 Rock, and she walks into a room of the writers of the show that she's on, and she basically says, yeah, listen up 5s, a 10 is speaking. So I was like, this is perfect. That is perfect for the creme de la creme, the most perfect books that I felt from this year. Next, we have lower 5s and like higher 4s. Like they're basically was just like 1 or 2 things off about the book that just like, it wasn't there. It wasn't there yet. It was close, but it wasn't there yet. And this is definitely David from Schitt's Creek. A lot of these are from Schitt's Creek. In case you didn't know, I'm wildly popular. Some might even venture to call me beloved. I thought that was perfect. That is perfect. So then we have kind of just the 4s. I do love a locker room. It smells like potential. And that is from Ted Lasso. I love Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso actually had a lot of quotes that I could have used for this tier list, but they were also inspirational that I already liked my top two, so that kind of left me with that. And the next one on the list is going to be from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. These are kind of like the threes. I didn't hate them, I didn't love them. They just kind of exist, and that's what originally the title of the tier was going to be, was This Exists. And the quote is, "If it were feasible, my diet would consist entirely of flavorless beige smoothies containing all the nutrients required by the human animal." So it's just there, like it just exists. You're getting along, you had an okay time, you just probably aren't going to remember it in a month or two. And that's probably, I feel like, where the majority of books are going to be going, is in this tier and the one above. Next are the twos. The ones that I did not like, I'm thinking, that's the weird thing about a two. A two sticks in my mind most of the time more than a three does, but for like the wrong reasons. So the next one is also a Schitt's Creek quote. Actually, the next two are. So 3 out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 out of the 6 were Schitt's Creek. I just can't help myself. I love that show so much. I probably could have made the entire thing Schitt's Creek, but they really didn't have any like that supportive to be like the best. So anyway, the next one's really for twos. You wouldn't be the first hostage. Yeah, I just don't care. I don't care about you. I really don't like you as a book. So like, yeah, you wouldn't be the first choice in a hostage situation. So then the last one. These are the 1 stars, the books that make me angry. And these are like, just like, they make me angry. Again, I don't think there's gonna be too much in here because some 1 stars are gonna be in you wouldn't be the first hostage. But yeah, this last one is just reserved for like rage-inducing books. Rage-inducing books. And that is David saying, "Eat glass." I was between this one and there's another Brooklyn Nine-Nine quote, because if you guys don't watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I don't know if you saw, but the guy who plays Captain Holt in Brooklyn Nine-Nine actually passed away. So his quote was the one up above, the beige neutral things. His other quote that I was actually thinking about using for this last one is when she's talking to this captain that he hates. And he greets her and says, "If you're here, then who's guarding the gates of Hades?" So I was between those two, but I thought the simplicity of David saying "eat glass" was perfect. So anyway, those are the tiers. Hopefully you understand what's going on, because it can be a little confusing if you've never seen tier lists before, but everyone has their own tier list system. They're always different. So we're just gonna get right into it. And I think this is in backwards order of what I've read like most recently. So the first one that we have is actually A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I just read this and I'm gonna put this in flavorless beige smoothies. And I feel like it's not. I feel like this book is going to stick with me, but I really did not love the ending. This is definitely borderline on It Smells Like Potential. You know what? I'm already making the first change. I'm already making the first change. We're gonna put in there. I do have it as a 3 in Goodreads just because I didn't like the ending, but I think it's gonna stick with me. I don't think I'm gonna forget this book. I feel like this is gonna be one that I may even reread later, but it was just weird. I felt weird about this one. Okay, so next one we have Scott Smith, The Ruins. I really wanted to watch the movie, but I wanted to read the book first. So I read the book. It was super short. Yeah, Eat Glass. That was a terrible book. I feel bad saying this because I feel like this is like kind of a classic in horror, and I really didn't like it. I've never hated characters more than this. Like, oh my gosh, they were awful. They were awful. And a definite like big negative point in this, there was like a random, very overly sexual scene in the middle of this book while they're all like dying. And it was so graphic. And I was like, why? Why? Was that even remotely necessary? The answer is no, it wasn't necessary. So it's partially for the author making a very dumb decision and the book just really just being bad. So next one, we have All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Ooh, I rated this a 4 and I did really enjoy this, but I still think it's just gonna go with It Smells Like Potential. I definitely think the writing style of this one kind of brought it down a little bit because I almost DNF'd it in the first 50 pages. I really liked it though, and I do think people should read it. Watch the trigger warnings on this one though, but it was a really good book. I really, really enjoyed it. Next one is None of This Is True by Lisa Joel. If you're part of the book club, you know where this one's going, and it's going directly in E-Glass. This may be one of my least favorite books of the year. I'm still compiling that list. I'm still deciding on that list. You guys are basically, if you're watching this, you're gonna get a hint at what my final like videos are going to be. Hopefully there's some surprises in there. I'm hoping I read some interesting stuff at the end of the year, but you're generally gonna know, I feel like, what's going where. This was terrible. I feel so bad because so many people liked it. Most of the book club did not. There were only a few people who liked it, but most of the book club was very anti. This is true, for pedophilia things going on, and it was just weird. It was weird. And I didn't like the ending. That's what really killed this one, is it's an ambiguous ending, which is not really a surprise much because that's what everyone's talking about with this book. It's just not very good. It's not very good. Okay, next one we have Belladonna. I gave Belladonna 5 stars. I absolutely love this book. I don't know if it's a favorite though. I don't know if any are going in favorites, like ever favorites. And I might change it at the end. Right now we're gonna put it in beloved because I did really love it. I still think there were a couple things that could have been a little bit changed at that. I'm actually currently reading the second book, Foxglove, and I'm hoping that one is even better. I already have some pretty good vibes about it, so I'm really excited about it. But this one was really good. I really enjoyed this. If you like young adult fantasy or even just fantasy in general, I would highly recommend this one. Next is the river. Oh, what is it? What the River Knows? Yeah. We're gonna go with It Smells Like Potential because it definitely smells like potential. It is one of those books that for me was bland. The first 100 pages was almost a 3, and then the last 30% of the book was so good. It was so good, and it reminded me what I loved about the first book by Isabella Ibanez that I read. So good. And the cliffhanger at the end was everything. It was everything. I loved it. So it's definitely gonna go in It Smells Like Potential. Next we have These Infinite Threads and This Woven Kingdom. So This Woven Kingdom I read first and is the first in the series. I think both of these are gonna go in Flavorless Beige. And even though I gave These Infinite Threads a 4, it's like a very soft 4. This is a series I feel like I'm going to read and I am not gonna remember anything in about a year after I finish it. It's just gonna be one of those that I'm like, oh yeah, I did read that. It doesn't stick out like the Shatter Me series did by the same author. There's just, it's overly written, and I don't love the love triangle weird plot line that's going on, and it just feels like not much has happened in this series in general, and I've read 2 books out of the 3 that are coming out, supposedly. Next, we have The Coworker. E-Glass, 100% E-Glass. Although I said none of this is true, maybe the worst book, but The Coworker I did hate more than it. I did hate The Coworker more. It was so bad. It was so bad. I don't understand how it was this bad. I'm trying to like even remember some of the plot. Oh, it was just because it was boring, and then I didn't like the twist because it's a type of trope that I really don't like. And the only thing I liked was the very last page. The very last page did have my mouth like. But other than that, it was one of the worst thrillers like that I've ever read. And then speaking of Frida McFadden, The Housemaid's Secret. I loved it. This is another 5-star. I absolutely loved it, which is hilarious because no one on BookTube likes it. No other booktubers like it. Like Meg with Books, she's a big thriller mystery reader. She hates it. She hates it so much. And I was so sad to see that because she's like, it's just awful. It's plain bad. And I'm sitting there going, But I liked it. I liked it. I really liked The Housemaid as well. I thought this was a really good follow-up to The Housemaid. And I was wildly entertained by it. It's just popcorn thrillers. Like, that's all they are. They're like kind of trashy thrillers. It's like trashy TV. They're trashy thrillers, but they're so much fun while you're reading them. Ooh, The Grim Forest is going to be, yeah, that is definitely Flavorless Beige. That one was yikes to get through, but it had enough in it that I was interested in reading the next book, but I am wildly concerned I'm not going to remember a single thing when I finally get the second book. So that is my biggest concern with that one. It was just really boring. Great idea of having fairy tales in a forest, like it's grim fairy tales and you're wandering a forest, but 90% of the book was wandering. And then the end, it was like you got reset back to the beginning. So it was like, nothing even happened. Nothing even happened. So that's definitely going in Flavorless Beige. One Dark Window. I'm gonna put it in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. I gave this a 2-star. Part of me really wants to put it in E-Glass. But I'm reserving it. This one made me mad because I chose the wrong boy. I chose the wrong boy in it, which completely ruined all of my enjoyment of this book. I also thought it was wildly insta-romance, which so I don't understand why so many people like it so much. I just thought it was so underwritten and could have been so much better. And yeah, it would not be the first hostage. If someone took this hostage, I would not care. I would not care. Ooh. Just kidding, it's up here. I just couldn't drag my mouse that far. Yeah, Iron Flame is listen up 5s at 10 at speaking. Rebecca Yarros has single-handedly saved my reading year with Iron Flame, and let me just go find Fourth Wing. Let me go, that's a lot of work, never mind. I don't even know where it is, but Iron Flame and Fourth Wing have single-handedly saved 2023. I know a lot of people do not feel that way about it, but I absolutely loved Iron Flame. I know a lot of people had problems with the writing, etc., but my friend and I devoured it, and we could not stop talking about it for weeks. We are still talking about it, and the stuff we randomly figure out afterwards, there's just so many Easter eggs. It is like a conspiracy theorist dream of a book. There is so much happening in the background that I feel like a lot of people are not like catching on to. It's like you love mystery thrillers, but you're a fantasy girl. So like you love fantasy books, but you're like, oh, mystery thriller. It's like real life mystery thriller. You're trying to figure out what's actually going to happen in the 3rd book or the rest of the series. I'm so excited. And I'm so upset the next book isn't coming out until like December next year or something. Oof. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I loved it. 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 Check and Mate. Another one that I want to put in E-Glass. But I give it a 2.5. It definitely would not be the first hostage. I've talked about this in length. I don't need to talk about it that much. Am I going to? Probably. Ali Hazelwood wrote a young adult book, and it is not good. I know a lot of people absolutely love it. I don't get it. I've read so many young adult romances because I do tend to read young adult books more. I read so many young adult romances, and this one is just so much worse than most of the other ones that I've read. This one is not good. The characters are so annoying. Sometimes they read like they're 10-year-olds. Like the poop jokes in here were ridiculous. I hated it. I really hated it. What saved it was the guy. The guy in it was actually written appropriately, like to the age range they were in. The main girl though was so obnoxious, and I feel like Ali Hazelwood has that problem. I feel like the longer I read her books, the more of a problem I'm going to have with how she writes her female characters, because she writes them so weak. Like they're so weak and whiny, and they don't need to be like that. Like 1 or 2 books, yeah, because everyone is different. But I'd like to have like a really strong female lead at some point in one of her books. And it's not, because the female lead is always overshadowed by the male lead in her books. And I don't think that's how it should be. So I really hope she writes a very strong female character in one of her next books. Stunning and Drowning, going right to E-Glass. Oh my gosh. I hate this. I read this one solely because this was my very last, I was gonna do this for last chance author video, but I ended up scrapping it because I read it in like one sitting just to get it over with, and it was really bad. It was really bad, and I don't know if that's just because I don't like Ava Reed's writing. I don't. I've read 2 Ava Reeds, I DNF'd one, and I gave a 2-star to the other one. And this one, I think I gave it a 2, but it really pissed me off. So if it is a 2, it's probably a 1 now. So it's going in E-Glass. It is, I hated it. I hated it. And the worst part, I think, is that Ava Reed thought she was so doing something. Like she thought that she was doing something about this plot, and how it was so smart how she got the characters alone in the setting, and she wrote like an architecture female student, which was so cool. She doesn't understand anything about architecture. She doesn't understand anything remotely about architecture, because the character was basically an interior designer, not an architect. They are 2 wildly different things, and I'm not saying one is like worse than the other. They are just entirely different disciplines, and our main character was designing the interior like house like furniture and that kind of stuff. And she would like try and say structural stuff, but that never happened. No. This was an interior designer student. And that would have been fine if you just said they were an interior designer. I don't know why she had to be an architect when you did not understand what architecture is. So very strange, very, very strange. Next one is the Britney Spears memoir. That is going right into Listen Up 5's A Tennis Speaking. It was so good. It was so good. If you have not read it, you need to read it if you're at all interested in Britney Spears. Even if you're not, you need to see how media treats people and you don't even realize it. Like yeah, you see it on the front page, like, oh, I wish they wouldn't chase that person, but you don't realize the extent of like the emotional damage of being in the media in certain ways does to a person. Like, you just don't get it, and you don't know half of the stuff that happens behind the scenes. So Britney was so open and honest about all the crazy stuff that happened in her life. It was heartbreaking. Honestly, it was incredibly heartbreaking and so good. And I highly suggest the audiobook. Brittany does not read it because she said she didn't want to re-traumatize herself with some of the stuff that she talks about. But the reader of the book is so good. She's some sort of TV star or movie star. I don't remember who it was, but she was absolutely phenomenal, and it felt like Brittany was reading it to you. So it was great. Next on this list is A Curse for True Love. I'm gonna put it in Beloved. I love the series. I gave this a 5-star. I don't think it was as good as Finale. Finale and Legendary and Caraval would have all been on the top. All of these books are about in Beloved. For some reason, Jax and Evangeline just did not work for me as much as the romances worked in the original series, and I don't know why. I even reread one of the books, and it caused me to actually bring it down from a 5 to a 4.5. I think it's, oh yeah, I didn't put any duplicates, any rereads I didn't put in here. But there was something missing. There was something missing in the series, and I don't know what it is. But I am excited because it seems like Stephanie Garber is gonna write another series in this world. Very excited for that, but I have no idea when it's coming out. But it does seem like there will be another one. Hockey Girl loves Drama Boy. This is going in Beloved. This was such a good graphic novel. This is the definition of why Goodreads needed to have a graphic novel section, because so good. Not a lot of people know about this book, but it is phenomenal, and I loved it, and it talked about a lot of difficult things, and the romance was absolutely adorable, and I think it was so much fun, and I highly recommend it. Blood Scion. I think I gave it like a 3, and it definitely is going into beige smoothies, mostly because I'm not gonna remember it. I'm gonna remember some of the trauma in it. It was very bloody and gory at some points, and that's probably all I'm gonna remember about it. I already don't remember a lot of the plot because it felt a little overwritten, and it's probably about 100 pages too long, which is sad because I think it had a really good backbone, but it just didn't work entirely. And again, like I said, the violent aspects of it are what I'm gonna remember, so I'm just putting it in, and I'm not gonna remember it. The Atlas 6, Eat Glass. I am having so many books going into Eat Glass. I did not think they were gonna be this funny. I'm a mean person, aren't I? This is bad. Anyway, the Atlas 6. This originally, again, would have been in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage, but the more and more I think about this book, the more I hate it. The more I absolutely loathe this book. And I keep forgetting how many pages I actually skipped while reading it. And I literally just gave up on the second one. I was gonna read at the Alice Paradox, and I was like, no, it's not happening. It's literally not happening. So yeah, that one's going in Eat Glass. Threads That Bind, I really liked it. That's going in Beloved. I love this book. I gave it a 4.25. It was so good. I'm so excited for the next one. It had such cool magic in it. The being like related to the fates, and oh, it was so cool. And it was the ending was so shocking. Like, I was like, this author went there. This author went there. They did not pull punches at the end of this book, and I loved that. I love that. It was so fun, and I don't know where we're going in the next book, but I will definitely be there for the ride. On Scalzi Red Shirts. That goes in Beloved too. I love this book. If you like sci-fi, I feel like funny, like humor sci-fi. That's kind of the sci-fi that I really like, is humor sci-fi. This is along the lines of Ready Player One and I was gonna say John Scalzi, but it literally was written John Scalzi. But Brandon Sanderson's Frugal Wizard's Guide, this is along the same lines, but it is following like a spoofy Star Trek, and it is so funny, and the red shirts are being killed off. It is so funny. The red shirts trying to solve mysteries. It's so good. So I absolutely love this one, and it definitely goes in Beloved. The Echo Wife. Ooh, I really liked this book. I'm gonna put it in Beloved. I really liked it. I think I gave it like a 4.25 as well. I really, really liked The Echo Wife. This might be a 5. Did I give it a 5? I don't remember if I gave it a 5. But I read this back in July, early September, and I could tell you the whole plot still. It was so good. This is why I think I need to read more sci-fi, because this is like a purely cloning sci-fi type of book. It was very the Stepford Wives feeling with like a thriller mystery going on. It was so good. It was so good. And I don't understand why so many people don't like it. I was so sad. But yeah, that one's definitely Beloved. Oh, Chasm. I actually am giving up on this series. I am DNFing the series. It is just beige, flavorless, everything. Like, it is just, oh my gosh, it's not good. It's I feel like the first one had potential. So what happens is the beginning was really good of the first book, and then I kind of got bored, and then the ending of the first book was really good, and the same thing happened with this one where it kind of opened up interesting, and then the whole middle section of the book is just, I could not tell you a single thing that happened in this book, and I didn't read it that long ago, and then the ending was interesting. I could tell you the ending but I could not tell you anything else that happened. So this is definitely going in beige, and I did DNF this series. The Ski Trip, you can definitely eat glass. Oh man, if you're an author, don't watch these videos. Don't, these are not for authors. They are not for authors. I hated this book. I got an e-arc of this book. It was not good. It was not good, and I had to double check like 3 times if it was a man or a woman who wrote this book, because it felt like someone who hated women wrote this book, because the twist has to do with women being crazy because of things. And I was so pissed off about this book. It makes me mad even still talking about it. And it had like an interesting premise, and it had some interesting things that happened, but that twist and what happened, and it did kind of drag on in the middle, I was just like, you hate women. Why would you do this? Like, why would you do this? Trust in the Emerald Sea. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I just thought it was kind of boring. I'm also reading it for the second time right now with my husband, and both of us are just slogging through it. I thought I would like it better the second time reading it with him. It's making it worse. Making it worse. I love the idea behind it. I love the characters. But it was so boring. You know what? We'll put it into potential. I think I gave it a 3.5. And like I said, I loved the ideas behind it, the people, the story. I loved everything behind it, but I thought it was executed so poorly, and I was so bored. That's really what it comes down to. I was really bored. I think the next one was, what is it? Fake Dates and Mooncakes. It's so hard to like read the titles because they're cut off. This is going in potential. I really, really like this one. This one was really, really cute. One of my favorite shorter young adult romance novels. It was very short. Like, I want to say it was under 300 pages. It was just a super cute, quick novel that I would recommend if you want to read quicker things towards the end of the series. We don't have a lot of time to read a lot more stuff. It was just really adorable. Oh man, I don't remember what this one's called. The Borrow a Boyfriend Club. This one was fun. Ooh. I don't know if I should put it here or here. I think I'm gonna keep it in it as potential because I can't remember like that much stuff that happened in it. I do remember really, really liking it, and it was so cute. I remember thinking a lot about it. It was cute, and it had really, really good representation, but I do not remember like the finer things that happened and how it like resolved. But there were definitely some really fun things in this. I really like this one. This is definitely one that not a lot of people have read. So if you want to read a quick young adult romance, The Borrow a Boyfriend Club is actually really cute. Deck of Omens. This was the second book in what was the first one? The Devouring Grey. You would not be the first hostage. You would not. If you read The Devouring Grey, you pretty much read this book. It just rehashed everything from the first book, which sucks because I gave the first book a 4.5. And this one's just so boring. Nothing happened in it. It was, oh my gosh. I literally could not tell you what happened because it feels like everything that happened in the second book happened in the first book. So I can't separate the two. It was just not good. And the resolution wasn't good either. Burn the negative. This was going so badly. Seeing it like this is like, oh my gosh, my reading year was not good. It was not good. Burn the Negative was awful. It was really bad. It was really bad. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't really have anything other, and it was, I think what made it worse is it was one of my more anticipated books because it has my favorite trope. My favorite trope is stuff happening on movie sets, haunted movie sets, and this was a cursed movie. Should have been so good. It turned weird. It turned so weird. So no, that one was not good. Holly Horror #1 is going and it smells like potential. I liked this one. I don't know if this is a debut, but it was really, really good. I want to say it was a debut. This is phenomenal. I am so excited for the second book to come out. It had a few issues, pacing problems, but generally I love young adult horror. I absolutely love young adult horror, and this one is really, really good. Another one not a lot of people have talked about, but if you want to read some young adult horror, Holly Horror is definitely a good one to read. Dragon's Promise. Yeah, it's the same problem I've had with this author. I don't know what it is about this author, but I read, what is it, The Spinner? What is the first one? The first series called? I don't remember. Spin It On, and I don't remember the second book. But the first book is really good, and then the second book is just it's like the author doesn't know where to go with the series. And the same thing happened here. I loved the first book in the series, which Six Crimson Cranes. I loved Six Crimson Cranes, and then The Dragon's Promise basically just recycled a bunch of stuff from the first book and didn't do anything remotely unique, and it was boring. I enjoyed reading it while I did, but I cannot tell you much of what happened in that story. Next one, Spellbound. This is a tough one because this book was not what I thought it was. I'm gonna go in beige because, again, I'm not gonna remember this one a lot. This is one for people who like middle grade. This was marketed as a young adult, but it reads very, very young adult, and I tend not to like that. So for me, this was just a type of story it was, because I liked the idea behind it. It was an interesting story, but no, the characters acted way, way, way too young for what I was expecting, so it made me kind of not enjoy the book. Heart of the Sun Warrior. You're going in Beloved. This was an emotional roller coaster of a book. I did not like 90% of the book because I thought one thing was going to happen. I was positive one thing was going to happen, that I chose the wrong boy again. I did not. I did not. The last 10% turned this book into a 4.5. This is one of those series that I actually really want to read again because I read the duology expecting one thing to happen and wanting something else to happen, so it hurt my reading enjoyment as I was doing it. Oh yeah, I need to reread these because these may be 5 stars upon reread, and I am foaming at the mouth for Tales of the Celestial Kingdom to come out next year, really soon too. Actually, I requested an archive, got a response yet, which makes me really sad because I really want that book, because it's basically gonna give you stories about what happened before the book series and between, like, during the series and after the series, and I'm dying to know what happens after the series is over. So, oh, I'm so excited. Ooh, Dark Corners is E-Class. So bad. I was so mad about this. To me, when I heard about Dark Corners coming out, to me this was a slam dunk, was going to be a easy 5-star, because The Night Swim was one of my favorite thrillers I've ever read. Dark Corners was supposed to be probably the winner of Goodreads thriller category this year. I mean, this is what I thought was going to happen. My husband and I read this book together. Wow, it was bad. Wow, it was bad. There's a reason you haven't heard anyone talking about it. Like, there's a reason no one has talked about it, because it was not good. It was a wildly disappointing follow-up to The Night Swim. And now that I've read a couple of this author's books, I'm starting to think that The Night Swim was a fluke because I've DNF'd or hated the rest of her books, which is really sad because The Night Swim was so good. No, this one was really bad. My husband also absolutely hated it. The only one left by Riley Sager is going in Potential. I'm very close to putting it in beige because it is one of my lesser I'm not going to remember this one compared to the other ones that I've read by Riley Sager. It was just fine. I didn't think it did anything remotely interesting. It had a lot of, it was a very generic thriller story. It feels like he was doing a lot of interesting things that people didn't like or people loved. That's the thing. It was either people loved it or didn't like it. And then he was like, okay, this year, let's do something more chill. And that's what he did. And that's not why I read Riley Sager. I read Riley Sager to literally sit there being like, what is happening? Like, what is happening? Is this realistic? No. Am I enjoying it? Yes. So he did not give me that. And therefore he goes in, there was some potential in this book. Love Theoretically. It's been a really long time since I read this one. And I don't remember a lot of it. I know I gave it a 4, I think. I'm gonna put it in It Smells Like Potential because the potential is there, but I feel like ever since The Love Hypothesis, it's just like rinse and repeat, and I'm just kind of over it. And I really want something different, which is why I'm really excited about Bride. The next book that Allie Hazelwood is doing is Bride, and it does seem very unique compared to what she's written before. So I have very high hopes for that. Fine Rivals. Straight into beige. I'm liking that I'm seeing actually more people not liking it, because before I could not escape reviews of people loving it and being obsessed with it, but I have recently started seeing some people not liking it, which I'm like, yes, I don't feel like a crazy person. It was insta-lovey. I didn't like it. It felt very weird historical fiction, and I don't like historical fiction, and apparently I really don't like weird historical fiction. And what happened at the end pissed me off. It was so frustrating. I remember all the book, but I don't have any general, like, I'm not mad at it, but I don't have any good feelings towards it either. So it is right there in that middle. The next is the second book in this series. It's going right next to, I'll put it right next to that one, The Ballad of Never After. I also really like this one. I actually like The Ballad of Never After better than a lot of people do. I feel like a lot of people did not like this one that much. I do like A Curse for True Love better. I think it was better, and I did like the ending of the story, but generally I have about the same feelings as the whole series. Ooh. Okay, this is definitely going here. I'm Not Supposed to Be in the Dark. One of my absolute favorite young adult horrors I've ever read. It was so good. It's tempting to even put it up one, but I did give it a 4.5, so I'm going to trust myself while I was reading it that it wasn't there yet. It was really good though. It was really good, and I'm really excited to read something else by this author. It was so good. There's something very ethereal about the book, and the mystery was really interesting and kept me enraptured the whole time, and the writing was so good. So good. So again, another young adult horror that I highly recommend. And again, why there should be a young adult horror category in Goodreads. The Princess and the Grilled Cheese, also going in Beloved. See, we're turning it around. It's starting to go better. It's starting to go better. The Princess and the Grilled Cheese, I really love this. Another graphic novel. This one is just really cute and kind of silly and whimsical, and there's an adorable dog in this book that makes it worth a reading on its own. So again, highly recommend this for anyone who wants to read a cute graphic novel, who is jonesing after Heartstopper comes out, and we're left to wonder when the next one comes out. You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. Is it You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight? You're Not Supposed to Die something? You wouldn't be the first hostage. This was wildly disappointing, and I should have known because I've tried to read 2 other books by this author, and I didn't realize it until after I read the book, and I was like, why does this writing seem so familiar, and it's not working for me? And then I realized it was the same author as Cinderella is Dead and the Poison something, I don't know, something Poison. It didn't work. I actually really liked the book up until the ending, and then the ending completely destroyed this book for me. Like, the twist was so stupid. It was so bad. I did not like this one. One for My Enemy, potential. We're gonna put this into potential. I give it a 3.75. I think it's kind of a 3. I do remember a lot of this book though, and I think it had a great idea behind it, and I did like the writing style in it. It just didn't execute it well enough. So this one definitely had a lot of potential, but I can see why a lot of people didn't like it. Oh, I probably shouldn't have My Dark Vanessa in here. This one feels weird to rate. We're gonna put it in potential. I like this book, but it's not a fun book to read. It's not a fun book to read. The whole book is a trigger warning. That's literally the whole thing. The whole thing. It's a really great book, but it makes you depressed. I mean, it is so hard to read, and it's frustrating, but it's a great story. and I think a lot of people should read it. I feel like a lot of men should read it and kind of understand things that they get from the book. It was tough. That was a really tough one. Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. This is definitely going in... I'm torn between these two. I'm gonna put it in Beloved. I really liked it. I really, it's a 5-star for my husband. He loved it. It was really good. I am so sad so many people didn't like this. This is not for fantasy readers. That's most of the people who DNF'd it, who I watched DNF it, are fantasy readers and don't tend to read that much sci-fi. This is for humor sci-fi fans, the John Scalzi fans, the Andy Weir fans. That's who this is for. This is not for fantasy fans that got this book from the Secret Projects. This one is really good. I loved it. Imogen obviously is going in Listen Up 5's A Tennis Speaking, 100%. This was so good. I even listened to this on audiobook. My favorite book I've ever listened to on audiobook, because I tend not to like books as much on audiobook as I do physically reading them. But even on audiobook, so good. It was so good. I loved the discussions in this. I love the representation in this. I love the characters. I felt like the reason it's so high is Becky Albertalli was able to make me feel like a paranoid teenager again, and it was awful. It was awful feeling, like reading into things, being like, oh, did I do something stupid? Dreaming about things at night that you did 20 years ago. Like, it was stressful and so good and adorable, and I loved it. For Olympus, we don't really need to talk too much about this. This is going in Listen Up 5's A Tennis Speaking. This whole series is phenomenal. I think this is my least favorite out of all of them, so I guess I should probably... No, it's staying up here. I love this whole series. It's so good. The Devouring Gray. If the second book had been good, it probably would be in Listen Up 5's A Tennis Speaking, but it's gonna go in Beloved. I love this. I love the vibes. It's like the similar vibes of Twilight, like the dark, gloomy, small town kind of thing, but with Vampire Diaries vibes, but make it kind of a lot cooler than those two things. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and I'm so disappointed that the second book was so bad. These Vicious Games. This is going in It Smells Like Potential. I love this book. I gave this a 4 stars. It was so good. Oh, so impressed with this. I think I read this at the same time as Holly Horror. They were just knocking it out of the park. Both of these, I think, they were both e-arcs, and I love them. This Vicious Games, I really want a copy of it. I really want to copy this book, and I want to reread it. It was that good. It was just fun. If you like games and high stakes and you're okay with things being a little bit ridiculous, I would recommend this. And it is borderline horror. I would say it's probably more thriller, but I think horror fans would have a fun time with it. But it is silly. Like, it's ridiculous. Just enjoy the ride. Next, we have Dead of Winter. This one kills me to put in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage, because I absolutely love Darcy Coates' books. I think they're so much fun. But this one was so painfully obvious what was happening that it kind of took the wind out of the sails. Like, I was so bored about halfway through, because I'm like, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. So by the time I got to the end of the book, that's literally what happened. Anyone could guess what happens in this book. It was no surprise. It was just very frustrating. The Legacies. This also goes into You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. This one wasn't very good either. I was really sad because I tend to really like young adult mystery, and this one just wasn't fun. This one wasn't. This is close to Eat Glass. Like, it is very close to Eat Glass. It just wasn't good. It wasn't good. I expected a lot better because I like this author. Very disappointed in this one. Empire of the Vampire. We are slapping that one right up into Listen Up 5's A Tennis Speaking. This is definitely in a fight for favorite book of the year. This one is so good. And you could, if you asked me at the beginning of this year to list the books I thought I would like, that would not be there. That would not be there. I thought I was going to DNF this book. I thought I was going to hate it. I thought it was just going to be too much for me. So good. It was so good, and I am so excited for the next book to come out. And I'm glad I read it this year, because if I had read it when it came out, I would have had to wait like 2 or 3 years for the next book. No. No. Nothing But Blackened Teeth. That's a surprise. That one surprised me. I thought I was gonna hate it, but I actually really liked it. I do think some of it was a little bit obnoxious, but generally this kind of freaked me out. Like, this book was short, and it managed to freak me out more than horrors of longer lengths. And I really liked it. I liked the writing style, and I thought the characters were like so fun to hate in this book. Like, there's some books that do unlikable characters really well, and I think this did unlikable characters really well because they were caricatures of unlikable people. So you knew you were like, you're supposed to not like them, which I like. So I love that. And then the salt grows heavy is this one is going right up into listen up to Five's a tennis speaking. Again, another one that is fighting for the #1 position. I sobbed like a baby. This one and Empire of the Vampire destroyed me. Absolutely destroyed me. The Salt Grows Heavy had me like clutching a pillow, screaming, sobbing. And I was just like, what am I doing? Which Empire of the Vampire did too. Empire of the Vampire ruined my life. So both of these, so good. And normally I don't like crying in books, so the fact that I loved it is like, wow. Next one is The Villa. I'm putting in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage, which is funny because it had potential. It had potential, but I didn't like it. It was a 2.5. I actually enjoyed most of the book, but it ended up to me fizzling out, and I didn't like the fake ending. Like, it did a fake out kind of thing that I don't like. It annoys me when Riley Sager does it too. It was a fake out, and it was just kind of annoying, and it was just frustrating. It was just very frustrating. My Murder, straight into E class. This is fighting for worst books of the year against The Coworker and None of This Is True. And The Ski Trip. Ooh, The Ski Trip. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. Looking at these, I'm just like, I don't know which one is the worst right now. I'm gonna have to do like a bracket thing where I decide that way. My Murder is solely, I like the idea in it. I like the idea in it. It's the sci-fi-esque stuff in it is really interesting, but it is not a murder mystery thing. That is not what's happening in this book, and I feel like that's kind of how it was marketed, but it's not. It's mostly about postpartum depression, which I have no interest in reading about. I don't read books about motherhood and illnesses and depression. I just don't. They upset me. So I don't like it being like a sneak attack in a book. It does not even mention postpartum as a part of the book in like the synopsis, and it's a major part of it. It is like the point of the book, really. And I don't need that as a jump scare. I'm sorry, no. Absolutely not. I'm glad people who read it and found it comforting though. I love that like happened for them. Not for me. Not for me. It stressed me out. Too Good to Be True is going in right in Bland Boys because it was fine. It was fine. I still remember like a chunk of it because I thought some of it was a little interesting the way it was written, and there was really a very big heartbreaking moment in it, but generally it just kind of is there. So yeah. Map of the Other Lands, I did get a very early arc of this. Yikes. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia was actually like one of my favorite books of the year, which you'll see in a little bit. And Map of the Other Lands was one of my most disappointing. It's going to be in my disappointing list. It just wasn't very good. It recycled a lot of the stuff from the first book and kind of rewound any type of character growth from the first book. And it just felt like the characters were reset to the first one, except for Wendell. Wendell was great as usual, but it felt like Emily reset to the beginning of the first one, and I was very upset to see that. Fourth Anger, another really good graphic novel. This had a lot of potential. I kind of wanted a little bit more out of it, but like it said, it was young adult graphic novel horror, and it's mostly romance. There's like mentions of horror movies in it, which I loved. I just wish there was more of that. I think they could have leaned more into the horror side of this and still done a really good job with the romance. I think it needed a little bit more. Hide, the graphic novel. You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. I actually liked it better than the book. It was still not good. Still not good, but the imagery and the way you were able to actually see the park helped a lot, because that was a big issue with the first book, is you not really being able to picture the park and where they were at because it wasn't described very well. But this did a better job of that. It just still wasn't very good. Like, they needed to overhaul the entire ending. That's really what this needed, was an overhaul of the ending, and that didn't happen. Fourth Wing, you guys know already. It is going straight up into Listen, Five's a Tennis Speaking. It's so good. It's so good. It is just one of my favorite new series. I'm very scared for the next 3 books, but we're gonna try it. We're gonna try it. Guess I should put this over here. Okay, next we are getting close. We're getting close to the end. Pure Nessie. That was a fun one. That was a fun one. I'm gonna put it in potential. I really liked it. It was weird. It was super weird. Loved the ending. It seemed kind of obvious what was happening, but I still loved it at the same time. Like, I don't think it was supposed to, I don't think it was trying to trick you. It was just like, this is what is happening and this is what this person understands versus what you understand. So I really liked it. It still is very outside my comfort zone, so I wouldn't say it's a new favorite or like something I'm going to think a lot about, although I thought about it a lot after I read it. I'm gonna put it in Beloved. I actually really did like this one. This one was cool. A House with Good Bones. I hate doing this because I love T. Kingfisher books, but it just didn't stack up to the other ones. It just wasn't as good. I didn't find it as interesting. It just didn't work as well. Mostly because of the humor was weird. And the ending was really weird. I still don't really understand what happened at the ending. The Wolf and the Woodsman, You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. It had a lot of good stuff going for it, but generally it just ended up not working. And again, it had the same issue of this one. It was like a 4 for the first 50% of the book, and then the last 50% was a 1. It was really bad, the back half of the book. And it also has a lot of animal like sacrifice and animal harm, and it was kind of traumatizing. Like, there was one scene I was really glad I skipped over. Like, I started seeing it coming, I was like, no no, I can't deal with that. Sorry for the orange tree. Ooh, if you asked me when I read it, I would have put it in beige. Now I'm gonna put it in potential, more I've had time to like think about it. The reality of this book is there was one perspective that I really did not like, and I did not like following it. I dreaded getting to those chapters, but then there was 2 perspectives that I adored, that I absolutely loved. I was so happy to read any time that they came up on page. So I think it had a lot of potential if that one storyline was kind of worked on and was more interesting, but generally it had a lot of potential. Daughter of the Moon Goddess, that is also going up into Beloved. Again, these could go up into favorites. I really need to reread them, understanding what's happening at the end, because I still can't believe what happened and I loved it. I loved it so much. Okay, this is a young adult horror. This is The Lake House, I think. Loved it. It was really good. Another young adult horror that goes into potential. So this is one of those that had like a really interesting ending, and in general it kept me super interested because it was just kind of weird. Like, it was really weird, and I didn't expect some of the stuff that was happening to be happening. This is kind of one that I would definitely reread just because it was so odd, and I want to see if I can like pick out some of the things that were happening, and it was a really interesting one. Next one, we have another, this is like young adult mystery thriller, borderline horror, kind of. It's going to Eat Glass. This was awful. This was so bad. Oh my gosh, this was bad. Lying in the Deep, I think by Diana Urban. Guys, this is so bad. This is one of the worst young adult books like I've ever read. It was so bad. This is supposed to be about like a person being murdered, but 90% of the book, while murdering is going on like behind the scenes, the main character is like constantly upset about her ex being around her and wanting him back. And it was like an insta love, but also pining book for an ex-boyfriend who sucked. And it was so weird. Like, why would you not focus on the mystery thriller portion of a mystery thriller book? Instead, it was like a weird mystery romance. It was so weird. The romance wasn't even good. That's like what makes it worse. It wasn't even good. Next is This Delicious Death. Oh, this one upset me because this is the same author as my Dearest Darkest, something like that. So excited, and this was supposed to be like new age zombie kind of things going on. That seemed really cool, and there's like synthetic organs, and it sounded so cool, and it ended up just being really boring. Like, that's all this one breaks down to, is it was just really boring. The Last Tale of the Flower Bride is definitely going in Beloved. I love this book. I actually just got a comment in another video. I'm really curious if they'll watch this one, that said the reason it wasn't in Goodreads was because it was just plain bad. And I was like, oh, my feelings hurt a little bit about that one. I love this book. I love the writing style. It's very flowery. I can see why people don't like it, but it's almost the point. Kind of the point of this book is to feel like you're in this dreamlike state, so you don't really know what's real and what's not real, so it kind of drags you into the book, and I loved it. I thought that was so cool and a really interesting way of writing a book. Defy the Night, definitely going in Beloved. I love this book. I gave it a 5-star. I would not say it's a new favorite ever, like overall, but I still really, really liked it. It's just one of those fun fantasy books that you're gonna read, have a really, really good time with. Incendiary, oof, oof. No, this one wasn't good. You wouldn't be the first hostage. It would not. It would not. And I DNF'd the duology. I did not continue after Incendiary. It's one of those young adult series you won't have fun with because it's overwritten. There's a lot of information you don't care about. It's very obvious, like kind of the stuff that's going on. It's just not very good. Going Dark. This was a surprise. This one is actually really good. If you don't like obvious thrillers, don't read this one. I don't tend to love obvious thrillers, but this one was fun. There was something about this that I had a lot of fun about. Very reminiscent of some very popular books that I don't want to name because it'll ruin the ending, but it was kind of obvious about what was going on, but I still liked it. Immortality, a love story. Going in bland. I'm sad about this because I like the series, but it's gonna be one that I'm not gonna remember much about. I'm really not, and I don't know how I feel about what happened in the series, especially the first one. The first one was rough, but the second one, I don't know. I feel so weird about the series, so it's definitely going in beige just because I'm not gonna remember a lot of it. The Hating Game, I actually really liked this, but I think it's just gonna go in potential. I did not like the main character as much. Okay, this is gonna be really controversial. The movie. I watched the movie first. I love the main female character in the movie. Did not really like the main male character in the movie. In the book, I liked the male main character, but not the female main character. So if you combined the movie female and the book male, I would have loved everything. But I just didn't love the female character in the book, so it did hurt it a little bit. The Retreat. My mom and I read this together. We were reading the Sanatorium series. This is the second in the Sanatorium series. It's a fun thriller, but I'm gonna put it in beige just because it has some weird things that happen in it. Mom and I talked about it. There's some weird stuff that happens in this book. Some of it is a little bit questionable and it's very odd, some of the things that happen, but it's a fun time. You're just not really gonna remember it after a while, but I am gonna continue the series. Ooh, Advika and the Hollywood Wives. Loved this book. A lot of people did not like this book, and I'm really sad about it, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And it was basically a story about a woman overcoming a abusive relationship. And it was so good because it's one of those things where it's anyone can fall into an abusive relationship, and sometimes you don't know, you don't realize it. And this to me showed a perfect example of that, and how it's also really hard to get away, and people will talk down to people they feel like, oh, they should have just got out of the situation. That's not how it works. So I love what this book does. I think it was so interesting, and I really, really liked it. Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice. This is going in potential. I really liked it. I think there were some things that could have been done differently, but it's just okay. I like the Doll A for Aunties series better. This one's just cute. Wayward. Definitely wouldn't be the first hostage. I don't have that much to say about this one. This was more historical fiction than anything. If you like historical fiction, you should try reading it, but it's not, it was kind of labeled as, I think it was labeled as magical realism to fantasy, and it's not. London Seance Society is also going in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. I have separated myself from this author. It's historical fiction, and again, I feel like I should have expected to not like it because I don't tend to like historical fiction, but the fantasy aspects and the idea, the seance stuff just sounded so cool, and it just ended up not working. Enter the Body is interesting. It's going in beige just because I don't have feelings either way about it. It's a bunch of Shakespeare plays retold as how the female character wants the story to actually go. So it's really interesting, but because it's told in prose, I had a really hard time following it. And normally I'm good about that stuff. I actually really love Shakespeare, but for some reason in this form, it didn't work. I loved the idea behind it. I loved how the stories changed. I just kind of wish it was just a regularly formatted book. Malibu Rising is going in, I'm gonna keep it in potential. This is probably my least favorite Taylor Jenkins read that I've read. I still really loved it, I think I gave it a 4, which is I think the lowest I've rated a Taylor Jenkins read. But it was more on the historical fiction side than, like, all of her books are historical fiction, but it's very much like character studies. And I tend to fall in love with the characters, and I did not fall in love with any of the characters in this book. So I didn't love it as much. House of Hollow. I really loved House of Hollow. We're gonna put this in beloved. This is one of my favorite young adult horror books. If you like young adult horror, definitely check out House of Hollow. It is like nature creepy horror that has a very heart-wrenching story involved in it, and it's really good. Ooh, I have some questions for you. Okay, actually, that is the worst book I've read this year. Eat Glass. This whole book can eat glass. I hated it. I hated it so much. I hated it because the author really felt like they were doing something. So this author has previously been nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for one of their other books, and you can tell that she was trying to get a Pulitzer Prize with this one because she threw every social problem she could possibly think of into this book. There was the Me Too movement, there was like Twitter fights in this, there was, I guess, X fights now, there was crime podcast, there was Black Lives Matter stuff in this, there was fat phobia stuff in this, there was everything you could possibly imagine was in this book. Wrongfully convicted people, everything. Literally everything you could possibly imagine for social issues was in this book. So it had no direction. There was no direction in this, and it's sad because it's had a good idea behind it, but the author was trying too hard to say something, and it ended up saying nothing. Ooh, Carrie Soto is back. I loved this book. This is going in favorites. This is going in listen at 5 to 10 is speaking. The way I felt about this book is very similar to the way I felt about the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and that is one of my favorite books ever. Carrie Soto is back is not there, but it was close. I felt very, very emotionally connected to this book, and I loved Carrie Soto and her story, and she felt very much like Evelyn Hugo, where they're lovable, but you also hate them a lot of times, and they're going through a lot of things, and they don't really know who they are as people, and it is just heartbreaking and interesting, and just feel like you were following a real person. And that's what I really love about Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing, is you feel like you're following real people, and it's just like, oh my gosh. They feel like memoirs. It's very strange, but it was so good. Ooh, then we have How to Sell a Haunted House. That is going in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. Mediocre. Grady Hendrix is very hit or miss for me. I'm now 2 for 2, I think, for his books. So we're gonna see how the next one goes. Down with Sticks and Bones, it has potential. I don't love this one as much as everyone else. Oh no, sorry. This is the second book. Down Among the Sticks and Bones is actually beloved. I actually loved this book. The first one was the one that I was iffy on, but I loved this second book. I thought the second book was so good. I love the story that we followed. It was so interesting. I could not get enough of it. It makes me want to read more of these books, while the first one I was kind of iffy on. Again, we'll get to that when we get to it, but The Soulmate. I really didn't like the ending of this one. I thought the ending was bizarre, didn't really fit with the rest of the book. It took a very strange turn that just did not work, and it's definitely going in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. We're not gonna talk about it that much. Legends and Lattes, bland. I'm trying to read Bookshops and Bone Dust right now, or did I say that right? Bookshops and Bone, yeah, I think I said it right. I'm trying to read that one right now. I'm thinking if I like that one, it could like make me like Legends and Lattes more, but I don't have my hopes up very high. Sea of Tranquility. I'm actually putting this higher. The more I've sat with Sea of Tranquility, the more I really like it and what it did. And it was a hard one to get. Like, it was an emotional read. It was very emotional. It's a story that takes place during COVID, it's actually not during COVID. It's during a pandemic. It's very similar to COVID that really traumatized a lot of people reading this book. But it's so good. And the ending literally was like, oh my gosh, genius. Like, absolutely genius. So I'm interested in reading more books. I'm hesitant, but I'm interested because I didn't love the book, but it definitely had a lot of potential, and I'm still thinking about it. Alone with You in the Ether, we all know, so good. which I'm scared now because I haven't really loved anything else that Olivia Blake has written that I've read. I still have Masters of Death to read, but I don't really have super high hopes about it. But I do really like Alone with You in the Ether. It is definitely fighting for that top position. I think it kind of has lost out to some of the other ones the longer I'm separated from it, because I did read this in like January or February, so it's been a really long time. I really probably need to reread it to give it a fair shot because of how much I loved it. But I like thinking back on it, I still think I like some of the others better, but it's still going to be one of my favorites of the year. Down to the last couple. Oh, this is taking forever. Don't Fear the Reaper. It's not Eat Glass though. The first book was Eat Glass. The second one is just, it's just not good. I don't really have anything else to say other than it's just not good. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia is definitely going in Listen Up. 5's a 10 is speaking. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It made me scream. I thought it was so good. It felt very science-y, which was kind of cool. And it felt like it was a journal thing. And I just loved how it was told. It was so interesting. Davenport's. This definitely was a solid 4. It has potential. I love how this was done because I thought this was going to be very insta-love because I didn't know this was a series. And then it ended on this like weird thing that I was like, oh, I like it, but this isn't a series. And then I looked up and it is a series and I was like, this is so good. So it ended up not being insta-love, which was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, because I was very concerned about that, but it was so good. It was so good. I really liked it. I'm very excited for the next book. Wild Blood. Yeah, it's Eat Glass. I have also ended my relationship with this author because this is the second book by this author I did not like. The first one was a Jane Eyre retelling that I was like, okay, there was some potential in this, but it was super insta-lovey. And then this one took insta-love and multiplied it by 1,000. By 1,000. And there's talk of like assault and that kind of stuff in here, and the main character being like whatever about it. And I was like, what? What is happening in this book? It was not good. The story behind this is really cool, but the actual book is not good. Heart of Iron is definitely going in Beloved. This is a 5-star. It's a soft 5-star. I actually really like this. Really had fun with this sci-fi book. It was just a good time. Like, it really was just a good time. There's nothing overly special about it, but it was just fun. Another Ashley Poston that I loved. The Lost Apothecary, my same thoughts as, where did I stick it? The London Seance Society. They're just boring. That's really all it is. So I don't really have anything else to say about that. Monsters Born and Made. This is going up in Beloved because it was really good. I had such low hopes for this because it has like a 3.5 or something on Goodreads. I read this, thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was such a good young adult fantasy. The ending is not my favorite because it says it's a standalone, but it does not read like a standalone, which is why it's not a 5-star. If I had confirmation of a second book, because the author did say that they're willing to write more books in the series, they just have other books they have to write first because of contracts. If I get confirmation there's a second book, it will get moved up to a 5-star. Until then, it's hanging out at about a 4.25, 4.5. Next one is Hellbent. Ooh, I'm putting it up here. I loved it. I loved it. It was great. I didn't like it as much as Ninth House, but it's still one of my favorite books of the year. I absolutely loved it. And oh my gosh, it took a direction I was not expecting, but I also love the direction that it took. I'm so excited for the third book. Next is The Stolen Heir. This was a weird one. I love Holly Black books, but I was not impressed with The Stolen Heir. I had my hopes very high because the Cruel Prince series was so good, except for that third book. Again, the third book of the Cruel Prince series was not good. The ending, really. But because of that, like, mini short story collection, it made it a lot better. But I was expecting a lot more from The Stolen Heir, and I just really didn't feel it. Like, I didn't feel the story. So I'm hoping for good things out of the second book in the duology. Episode 13 goes in You Wouldn't Be the First Hostage. It's not good. The audiobook is one of the best audiobooks I've ever heard. The production on it is amazing. There's slamming doors, there's sound effects. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And I like the idea behind it, but it was so boring. The book just did not work, and it was weird. The end of the book was just so weird. Every Heart a Doorway is going in Potential. I liked it. It had potential. It's why I read the second book, but I didn't love it. I think it was hyped up too much. I think that's an example of the book being way too hyped up for me. but I have a feeling I'll like it more upon like a second reread. Age of Vice, it just exists. I mean, this book, I read it. I'm surprised I read it, and it was pretty compelling as I was reading it. Could not tell you a single thing that happened. It's like a 500 something page book. Could not tell you anything that happened in that book. It was weird but entertaining, but now I don't know what happened in it. Marian Lane, it has potential. This is just a fun, cozy mystery series that I will continue reading. I liked it. That's basically how I felt about it. It had some really interesting things in it that I'm excited to see what happens with in the next couple books. What Lies in the Woods, no. There were literally plot holes in this book. There's, like, it kept me entertained enough that I'm not gonna put it in E-class, but there was legitimate plot holes and stuff that just didn't make any sense in this book. I was talking to my friend about this, and we both pointed out the exact same plot hole. That stuff the ending just didn't make any sense. Like, we literally talked about it and we're like, is that what was meant to happen? Like, is that what actually happened? Or did we read it wrong? But no, we both read it the same way. It was very weird. It was very weird. Star Daughter, it was fun while I read it, but I'm not gonna remember very much about it. It was interesting, it was just okay. Same, oh no, Shadow in the Glass goes and you wouldn't be the first hostage. Shadow in the Glass, I loved it until the ending, and the ending was wildly unsatisfying. It was really not good, that ending, which is sad because the rest of the book was really cool. Like dark fairy tale-esque kind of things going on, but the ending was bad. It was so unsatisfying. History of Wild Places goes right into beige, which is sad because Shea Earnshaw is one of my favorite authors. I did not like this one. I love the idea behind it. Did not like it. Did not like the twist. I thought it was weird. It did one of this twists that some books do that I never like. I've never liked that twist, and it did not change. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute was super cute. I'm really excited for Talia Hibbert to write another young adult romance because I like this one, but there were some issues with it that similar issues I had with Check and Mate, but this one wasn't as offensive as Check and Mate was. So I'm really excited to see another young adult romance, to see like the improvement as she writes them. Our Wives Under the Sea. You wouldn't be the first hostage. No. I liked the ending of it. I actually thought it was really emotional at the end, but the journey to get there was awful. The book jumped around so much. I didn't know what was going on, I feel like, half the time. It was so annoying. And then we are down to our very last book, and the first book that I read this year, Mindwalker. This one is going in Beloved. I actually really liked this book. It was so good. Another sci-fi book. I think I just need to read sci-fi books. That's kind of what I'm seeing from this list, is I need to read more sci-fi. It was just really good. I even have a copy from Goldsboro. I bought it secondhand. No one wanted it. It was like pretty cheap. I loved it. It was so good. I am so excited about the second one that I think is already out, but I think it's only published in the UK. I haven't been able to find a copy in the US, so I need to look into that more. But I'm really excited. It was really cool, very action-packed. It had one of the coolest sequences out of a book that I've like ever read, and it was so tense, and it was really, really good. So I really liked that one, and I would recommend this one too for any sci-fi readers. This is really, really good. So that is everything. I had more in the top row than I thought. I feel like looking at this, I feel better about my reading. It kind of comes out pretty even. Beloved had a lot, which is great. Liked had a lot, which is great. I didn't have as much down here as I thought I would. There's more in E-class than I thought there would be. I really did not think I would have this many in E-class. There's a lot more than I thought. But I also am like, I'm happy. I feel like it's more heavy books on the top than it is on the bottom. So I think I would have to say this year was a success then. I think I would have to say this year was a success then, because I can physically see it and I'm liking it. And I got some amazing books this year. I wish this row had more, but the ones that I do have here are incredible. They're quality, incredible books. So I'm very happy about that. So anyway, that was my tier ranking. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was you comment down below about what books you liked or didn't like out of these, etc. You guys know I read all the comments. I try to respond to every single one of them. And yeah, and make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future content of end of month things. I think I'm also going to be auditing my Goodreads books for this year. So like I'm gonna go on Goodreads and see what I rated things and potentially change it, because my thoughts do change as the year goes on. So that might be also one that I do. I don't know, since I did this, I might not do that, but I don't know. It's kind of still up in the air. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you guys in the next video.